Hey everybody, this is Nate Smoyer, and you're listening to the Tech Nest Podcast. This is the show where we sit down with the leaders in real estate and technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. If you've got an interest in real estate and technology, stick around. You're in the right place.
Well, hey, we've got a great show for you guys today. I've got the founder of dashCMA, Karen Abram, talking about, CMAs. Now, the normal status quo is that the agent goes in the office, they print out a whole bunch of listings off the MLS, and then they start manually trying to figure out, hey, what is my client's home potentially worth? And they show up to the house with some paperwork and things and try to convince the seller of, hey, this is probably the range of which your price should or shouldn't, will likely sell for. Now, Karen has kind of taken that old approach and then modernized it, put it to a very visual and interactive platform that is dashCMA. And I've gotten a demo of the product, and it really is really cool. I wish I would have had this as an agent. I probably would have done better. Maybe not. I don't know if I had any saving grace there. But anyway, dashCMA is what we're talking about. And we even get into other topics that I didn't plan on discussing, like should or shouldn't there be a national MLS? And I really liked what Karen had to say about that as we were discussing her growth strategy and also some friction that comes with growing nationally with such a product. So kick back, relax. You're going to enjoy it. Well, hey, Karen, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So glad you could join me here today. I know it's a Saturday, and being willing to brave and go at it. We're live streaming again today on Facebook. So let's hopefully nothing goes wrong. This is officially the first. This will be the first interview I live stream, so people will get to see really, do I know what I'm talking about, or am I totally clueless here? So anyway, as with tradition, I'd love to get it started right. Please go ahead, introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are and what you do.
I am Karen Abram. I am the founder of dashCMA.
All right. And we're going to talk all about what you've been working on, what's going on, and starting off with, maybe you could summarize for us all first, what's the big problem you're trying to solve?
So the big problem I'm trying to solve is that the traditional 60-plus page comparable market analysis, CMA, is not simple. It's not transparent. It doesn't do enough to empower the agent. It's not visual. It doesn't let the client, the buyer or seller, have that aha moment for pricing. So I'm trying to, in one dashboard report, in very clear visual, help the buyers and sellers have that aha moment and empower the agent to tell the story with data.
Okay, now I've done some CMAs in my day. Mm-hmm. They usually looked like printing off a whole bunch of sheets off the MLS. I would get some, current, I'd get some pending, I'd get some closed deals. Why is that a thing of the past? Why do we need a new tool to help us do this? Because agents have been doing CMAs for as long as we've been selling real estate, right?
Right. What you pretty much described is, I would equate to the phone book. It's like the yellow pages. It's a stack, and it is basically property after property after property, the same way you would flip through a phone book. And we don't flip through phone books anymore. Everything's digital and interactive. So our CMAs should be too. So that, I do think we're a more modern version on your traditional 60-plus page report.
Yeah, and I suppose you could take the environmentalist approach, like we're killing less trees. But I see what you're saying. Like that's clearly a way of the past, right? So now maybe you could walk me through here, because while I'm not selling real estate actively as an agent anymore, I stay in tune on what's out there, and I totally see the application here. What are some of the most utilized feature sets that agents, the moment they sign in and create an account with dashCMA, that they can take advantage of, and really takes their ability to present to buyers and sellers in a much greater capacity, or even an unfair advantage over other agents not using dashCMA?
So I think first and foremost, it can be a collaborative process. And that's what agents notice first, that it's something that you can do alongside your buyer or seller. So for me, I am an agent as well. There's nothing more powerful than saying to your buyer, this is a huge decision for you. It's a lot of your money. Would you like me to build this with you so that you can really understand how aggressive or conservative your price is. Same on a seller, to be able to say to them, you're going to be approached by so many different agents on what top dollar really is. I want you to understand what it is. Why don't we build it together? So it's very conducive to doing that because I don't need to toggle back and forth with the MLS to find my listings. I have one search that that will automatically pull in best practice values to get you started. And then it outlines everything in a really clean visual. So one of the top, to your question about what are some of the features people are commenting on the most, the visual of picture one scale where you can really highlight the properties that are that you want to stand out. And you can put all of those on top. And then on the bottom, you can show public estimates. You can show trends for active, pending, or closed. So the highest, lowest, average, median, closest, most recent. How features affect pricing, having a pool versus not having a pool, flags, properties too large or too small. So you have this really big picture that you're getting a very clear view of where the outliers are and where you have a lot of dense support. So I'd say the scale, the search process, the collaboration, and most recently, we launched an interactive link of the report where you can share a report link with your client. Your client can fully play with the report. They can click around, they can explore it. As they're exploring it, their actions are relayed back to the agent so that it's still that collaborative process. The agent knows where their buyers and sellers' interest is within that report. So
you beat me to it. I wanted to ask you about that because I know that you just recently launched a new feature. You jump right to it. So, I mean, that's great. And so, so a lot of that sounds like really what you're doing is, I mean, it's a much better visual. I mean, if you've been doing this for 30 years, you've got a gut feeling on a lot of stuff. But as much as we like to believe like we've got our feelings in check and we're not swayed, when you were giving me a demo of the product and you were showing me how it really displays on a scale, like I can clearly see where properties lie. Obviously this is, there's a few ideal use cases of that visual and talk about collaborative with, your client. What are some of like the really, high value use cases that, once an agent is using this, okay, it's going to be faster, it looks better, but how do they use this with their clients? Walk me through some of this.
So 2 use cases. One, the story of how I started to create it is on the buyer side. So that buyer who wants to kind of throw in a lowball offer and see what happens. And you're thinking, what's going to happen is you're not going to get a counter and you're not going to get the home.
Right.
So, and you're trying to help them understand that the home is way below market. So it's great to be able to show them that, listen, the home is priced over here when really all the other homes that are similar and comparable are priced over here.
Yeah.
And really show them then how frequently homes like this come on the market in this neighborhood, at what price points, and you can show that and really help them understand so that they don't play a game and lose the home that they want. For a seller angle, sellers are approached by agents with what top dollar is the whole time.
That's the key term. That is always turned around.
Dollar, right.
Top dollar.
Yeah. So I can go into a listing presentation, suggest that you list your home for $700,000. I might work, spend hours drilling into the market information and coming up with that. Meanwhile, another agent can walk in and say, I've done a lot of sales in this area and I think I can get you $800,000. Right. And now I have to make a case, not for why I think it's worth $700,000, but also why I think $800,000 is not the right price point.
Right.
So for a seller angle, that's really important for them to understand, so that the worst thing would be that they accept to list at $700,000 and they feel that they are compromising. I want them to be excited. If we list at $700 and I get them a deal for $700, I don't want them disappointed.
Yeah.
It's helping them understand what top dollar is, and it really shows that.
I mean, and so I've been in this scenario. So let's not ignore this one because this is going to come up. Okay, right. So you're sitting with the client and client says, I had Realtor John down the street. He said my house should sell for $750. You're telling me it's $700. Zillow says it's worth $770.
Oh, that's my favorite. Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through how this is a tool to handle Zillow says my house is worth fill in the blank.
So it's like you've been in the room with me.
This is a real life scenario when I'm throwing at you. So
you're right, because every agent has had this happen to them where they go into a listing appointment. They say we should list for 700 let's keep 700. And they say the agent I met with before you suggested 800,000.
Yeah.
And then what our tool does is it shows, you can say, well, why don't we plug in 800,000 so you can see what that looks like. So now picture that scale again, and you'll see 800,000 sitting on an island. And you can easily point out, hey, did the other agent mention that at 800,000, you're about 150,000 over the highest closed comp. So we're going to have a difficult time with an appraisal. Did they also mention that you're about 150,000 over what homes that are 50% larger than yours in this neighborhood, same bed count, are going for? No, of course not, because you have to run multiple reports to tell that story in your other tools. So after I get a couple no's, or even if it's, well, Zillow said, okay, well, here, I looked at Zillow too. Here's Zillow's estimate, but I also considered 5 other public estimates. And now they're all on the scale. And say, I looked at Zillow, but rather than leaning into only one factor, I'm looking at the big picture. And the big picture is showing that Zillow is a bit of an outlier in this case. But the more you can help show that and show the big picture of all the data in one view versus flipping through pages and requiring them to remember and retain all this information, the better. And then you end it with, I want you to understand what top dollar is. Would you like me to build this with you?
All right.
And you're bringing them in and letting them understand versus saying, trust me, I do a lot of sales in this area.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously this, and also you're able to give it to your sellers in this scenario, like say, hey, they can look at the data themselves and say, where do you think is the best place? I think that was one of the scripts we used to use. It was like, where do you think that your home would fall on this spectrum here? Because then they have to really look at it and say, well, okay, I see what you're saying. I can't price it all the way out there. Nothing else is sold out there. And, and they will leave their house is special, which everyone's house is special. Sure it is. Yeah. But, there's a moment where you have to come back and look at the data. And I feel like that's an interesting thing. And I like the fact that you're doing that because it's very consumer centric in that it's got to empower the agent to give the right information to the consumer. I am interested in, following some of the trends of like how tools are making their ways to agents. It seems like there's a few different strategies to go. You can go directly to the individual agent, you can go to the team, or you can go to the brokerage and sell, those 3 different tiers is how you can sell those tools. Which of those have you chosen as your route to your end user? And then, maybe talk me through why you've decided that's the right route to go.
All of them. So, want to make sure that it's accessible on all levels. So the agent can come to the dashCMA.com. They can sign up directly. The teams, we have offers that start at a team of 2. And then we have offers that scale all the way up to when you have over 2,000 agents. So we sell to the brokerage, the team, the agent. Want to make sure that it's accessible on all ends.
Yeah.
So right now, the common theme in the industry is how are you differentiating yourself? And this is definitely one of those ways to stand out, to differentiate yourself, and want to make sure that if the office isn't on board or the brokerage isn't on board, but the agent wants to use it, that they can.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. I mean, obviously you walk in with a report, whether it's on your iPad or you print it off and it's got that bright orange on it, it's going to stand out.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I stand up.
Yeah. So, and obviously, and I've been following this, kind of loosely, but, it seems like the trend really is teams, because, and from my analysis of it, it's very difficult for a brokerage to push tech tool adoption down through the brokerage because they're not really in charge of those agents. Whereas a team is kind of an agreed upon. Are you seeing that as well from your perspective? Because you're working with them, and do you think that that's going to continue? Teams are really going to be the future for agents in their careers.
Yeah, I think Teams is definitely, depending on where you are in getting started, absolutely. It could be a great route to help either kickstart your career or help kind of give it that extra boost. But I would say for us, if I walk into a brokerage and say, hey, I have a CMA, they're going to say, I do too. And so that's really a harder conversation. But where we have been more successful is the agent that has started to use the tool. They're then telling their team, they're telling their brokerage, hey, this is really helping me, one, save a lot of time, two, look super thorough and professional,
and
it's helping me get deals. So with that third bell, when that rings, that's when it's suddenly, we should expand this to the rest of our team or to the rest of our brokerage. But I don't feel that we've had brokerages adopting it and as an intro to the agents. It's more the agents are introducing us to their brokerage, which has been pretty awesome.
I mean, that's the Slack strategy. That's how Slack has, pulled a lot of corporations in with their pro deals. I think that totally makes a lot of sense. But you hit on a key point here. I have this discussion with plenty of people, over the last year or so, and you said it helps agents get the deal. And I've had, most of them have been with people who are getting into the marketing side of real estate. They're trying to do lead gen for realtors or find, on off-market deals and, trying to resell or arbitrage it back. And they ask, hey, what do you know? Like, what's some good ways to get started? And I always come back to, hey, look, if you're not helping get to the deal, get the deal done, it doesn't matter how cool the tech is. I don't want to get lost up in that, so getting to that deal. Have you been able to do any sort of breakdowns or analysis with some of your customers to find out if there's a higher closing rate or anything along those lines when they use a dashCMA versus, say, printing one off the MLS?
Yeah. So we're actually starting those right now because we're only in about 6 months. So we're starting to gather, what those case studies are, what those conversion rates and so forth. And yes, we've had, I had an agent even reach out just the other day. She sent me a text message letting me know that she was grateful for the tool because it helped her get business in an area that there's another agent who is the lead agent for that farm. And she felt they were throwing out a price that was too high. And she used this to help show that and to get that deal. So we have individual testimonials and case studies, but yes, we're just starting to put together what those numbers are. But I will say I do demos every single week. I build a CMA from start to finish, and it takes me 10 minutes.
Yeah. Wow. And that itself right there, that's fast.
So for example, even if your client asked you a simple question, if they said, I have an amazing view with my property, or I have a pool, what's the value in me having a pool versus the other comps in the area that don't?
Yep.
If in any other tool, you have to run 2 reports just to answer that question. So the fact that you don't need to do that in ours cuts down time. And we have calculated it out. You would have to currently run over 30 reports to get the same perspective from one search. So it's definitely a time saver. And if you're saving time in building your CMA, it's time you can be using in prospecting or door knocking, whatever the case is to help you get business.
Yeah. Door knocking, that brings back some memories.
I was never good at it.
I'm terrible at it.
I'm horrible. The first time I went door knocking, actually, I knocked on the door and they said, actually, I would be interested. Would you like to come in? And my first thought was, no, you're a stranger.
But you were knocking on their door.
I don't think I'm great at door knocking.
Yeah.
So
I've met some agents that are phenomenal at that. I like to stay away from. I realized after being in the business for it's still a very short amount of time that I sold, and I realized as working in the residential portion of real estate was just not my cup of tea. I wasn't fit for it. I don't understand the value of granite countertops. I just don't get it. I want to know how big the garage is. Yeah, so okay, let's keep moving here. So you guys have only been at it for about, you said 6 months, right?
Yeah, we launched in, I guess 7. We launched in April 3rd, to be exact,
Wow.
of this year.
Yeah, that's good. Don't launch on April 1st. No one will believe you. Okay, so have you taken an approach of like going straight nationwide, or are you focusing on any specific markets throughout the U.S. To gain density and adoption?
So we started by focusing on just pretty much the CRMLS and Carrots MLS markets. So your Southland Regional, your Ventura County, basically all of the MLSs that have a data share with CRMLS in this area in Los Angeles. Yep. And our approach has been to expand where there's interest. So it's funny actually, because my marketing team and I just had this conversation where pre-launch, we had a very strategic, fleshed out plan for exactly how we were going to expand. We knew, we could tell exactly the rhyme and reason for each. And then that kind of went out the window when we went to Inman Connect, and we had brokerages coming up, MLSs coming up and saying, we're in this area and we use it. Well, you're next. So it's been that approach of going where there is that interest and letting us drive it. So, but if anyone is looking for a very sound strategic approach on how to expand, I do have that. We're not doing anything with it. But
so I'm curious though. So each market you go into, do you have to join that MLS to be able to use that data? Okay, so it's a very expensive move.
There are national resources with a caveat to it, with a huge asterisk. So if you use a national resource, your data is going to be limited in one way or another. Mm-hmm. So, and we did a ton of focus groups with agents, investors, developers, recent buyers, recent sellers, members of the MLS, members of the tech industry. And one of the biggest gripes real estate agents was when they're building a CMA, it's not matching what they see in their MLS. So we really want to make sure that we hit on that pain point. Here's what I mean by that. If they built a CMA in a tool, the tool would show them there's 4 active, but then they go to their MLS and build the same CMA and it'll show 6 actives. So we didn't want to require them to have to go back and forth to their MLS to find the comps. So we want to make sure we are adequately pulling in all results. So for us, it is a necessity to work with the MLS and not go national with a huge asterisk of how are you missing data?
Yeah, and that's a very important piece. I mean, this is something that, obviously consumer-facing apps oftentimes have a lag on some data depending on which one they're using. And so there's a lot of, this is why the agent relies so heavily on the MLS, because it's as close to the actual source of the information as possible, aside from the tax records. But that's a whole nother thing, and we all know that they're not right 100% of the time either. So, you guys are painstakingly going to have to join and work with those MLSs and those partnerships. I would love to hear from your perspective, because obviously there's sometimes this comes up in discussion of, should we have a national MLS? Curious your thought, would that be a good thing or not such a good thing? And I mean a good thing for agents, and then also a good thing for consumers.
So I do think there should be a national MLS, but I think you should be able to filter by the criteria that is relevant for your market as well, and have that lens. So one thing I've noticed very, very quickly as you start to expand MLSs is the data is not standardized at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. What we refer to as a condo, for example, would not be referred to as a condo in other areas. So but yet if you put me in front of that building, I'm going to call it a condo, but everyone else in that area is going to say that's a high rise. It's not a condo. I'm like, same thing. So
I just call them 3 flats here, and I'm just like triplex.
Right.
It's a triplex.
So to me, I feel that it should be national from the angle that if I have a relationship with a client, I should be able to help them in their home search anywhere.
Yeah.
But I should also be able to see the vernacular and the skew of wherever that market is. and have a national representation that's able to pivot in a way to show me that specific market, their data.
Yeah.
So yes, but I also kind of put shades of no in that it should be pivotable.
I mean, that makes sense. And I don't think it's a simple answer because they're like, you know, who structures it, who polices it, who maintains it, you know, how's the cost? Is it, you know, representative of the local and, you know, there's a lot of caveats to that. I didn't have this question planned. So that was one of those curveballs I promised you would probably come along.
Totally fine.
You're working with the MLSs. So you're already experiencing the friction of there not being a national MLS.
Oh yeah,
you can't expand. The data is different. So every market you go to, if it's a different structure, just on condos, you have to be able to build and make sure the product can adapt to that.
Well, not only that, but you also have non-disclosure. So you have areas where they're not reporting bed count, for example, and you have to kind of get around that. I'm sorry?
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Right. So and that's more on the tax record side of things. So you have to make sure that your tool can adapt for every nuance. So it's not as easy when someone says, you can have our data because we want to get live quickly. Well, wait a minute. I have to make sure where are those nuances? And they're not always where you would expect them to be. Bed count took me by surprise for a moment.
It's so weird looking at rentals and even multifamily in Chicago. They advertise the number of rooms. They don't. So I'm used to in the Northwest, you know, we just do by, you know, a 3-2 is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But then here, and that's what you lead with is bedroom count, bathroom count. But here you lead with room count. And so I'll see a 5-room house and look at that. It's so weird. And then I realize it's 5 rooms, 1 bedroom. And like, oh, well then, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Slight nuances.
This is a 5 bed and it's only, you know, you're looking at 1,200 square feet. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're right.
We haven't talked about costs. What does it cost an agent? What's it cost a team to be able to, you know, sign up?
To the agent, it's $15 a month, or if they sign up for the year, it's $144 for the year, drops that monthly price down to $12. We do have a mandatory free trial. And the reason I say it's mandatory is try it out. I want to make sure you like it. We are changing it every 3 to 4 weeks. We're adding new things to it for that. And it's a 15-day free trial, except we are in the CRMLS and South and Regional Marketplace. So as a benefit to being a CRMLS or South and Regional agent, or user, I should say, you have a 30-day free trial instead of a 15-day trial. For teams, it depends on the sizing. We have deals that scale starting at 2 agents that start at $10 a month, all the way up to once you cross that 2,000 agent point, we're at $1 per agent.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, a brokerage really gets us at an affordable rate for agents across offices. That's pretty cool. It makes a lot of sense to be able to do that, you know, obviously as part of a growth mechanism. I know that you've only been doing this now for 7 months, but one of my favorite questions I ask people who come on the show is, you know, as you're experimenting and obviously in startup mode, there's iterations on a weekly basis. Is there anything that you started either developing or building and you realize, hey, this doesn't make sense for us to do this, or that's totally the wrong direction, and you had to kind of quickly pivot or change direction that you can share?
Yes. Like, where to even start on that? So when we plotted it all out of the developments that we're going to be doing every 3 to 4 weeks, before we even launched, we knew we have about 3 years of work ahead of us. So when we put it all out, it was very difficult for me to launch when we did, because for me, I look at the tool and it's not complete. But it's not complete because I know what I want to add to it. It's just going to take time to add that to it, and we want to make sure we're getting responses along the way.
Right.
So, but yes, I think there's learning curves along the way. Making sure you're working with the right people is one. We did start. We worked with one side of developers. We started over with another side. So it's a huge learning curve as you're doing it. iBuyers became a huge presence as we started. So we're thinking through that incorporation of it. and making sure that it stays nimble. So I do think it's really important that we are consistently and constantly putting out updates to show that the market's changed. The market's absolutely changing every day with new forces, new competitors, not just in the CMA space, but to the agent.
Oh, I mean, across the board, we're seeing probably the most transformation and challengers to the industry as we know it that the industry's probably ever faced since the internet.
Right. So to me, the tool needs to be rubber. It needs to be completely flexible. You need to be able to adapt it to what that agent needs. And I like to say that our strength has been that we are great listeners and that we're actively trying to make sure that we're hearing what people want and we're reprioritizing our list. There's a couple features that I would love to add to the tool. Actually, to your question, we actually did build in our own AVM into the tool where we can give you a suggested price. I loved it. Every agent hated it.
Well, because it takes the work. Oh, it does remove them from the process. There is that.
Right.
Yep.
And they said their feedback was, I don't want another tool telling my client how to price. I want to be the one in front of them telling them what their price should be. And so we thought about that for a minute and thought, actually, instead of showing our suggested price on that scale, why don't we just show your face? Let's put your face, your price right on the scale. It doesn't get much more empowering than that. To say, here's where I think you should price, and here's everything around my price to support that. So we pivoted in that sense of it wasn't what we thought we were going to be doing, and we spent a ton of time coming up with it.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you have to be able to do that. And we do that. I mean, all the time we're going through iterations. Even just this last week, we announced a new partnership and going through and just reviewing everything of how do people respond to it and what are the changes we're going to be making in this week. Just, it's 1 week after. So it's like months of work. You launch and then the next week, we're tearing down half of what we've built and building back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's how you find that true market fit of what people are looking for, what they need, and what that's going to be looking like. I want to shift here a little bit. So 7 months in, I don't know if we talked about this previously, but one of the topics that comes up a lot in real estate tech, prop tech, and all startups is obviously funding. There's lots of companies that go through the venture route, and then there's some that go through the bootstrap route. Which route have you chosen to get your company up and off the ground? And then also, what's the future look like?
So to get up and off the ground, it has been completely bootstrapped. It's self-funded. As we've been expanding, now we're looking into what will that look like. We have several partnerships that we're looking into right now. We're also evaluating various investors. And I think I probably could more directly answer that in about 5 months.
Okay.
But right now, it's kind of looking into and exploring each possible route aligned with what are we hoping to do in that next year. Very goal oriented, and we definitely have some big goals and some key deadlines for achieving those. So we need to make sure that whether we continue to bootstrap, whether we partner, whether we take on strategic investor, private equity, whatever the case is, that it will help us meet those goals on deadline.
Yeah. And I mean, I just start doing some in my head unit economics, even at, as a standalone tool, $15 a month, there's 1.4 million Realtor Association members. And then there's others outside of that. I think you have a few potential customers out there. So you've got a pretty sound case.
Yeah.
So
we have in that roadmap, we do have some other iterations for it. So dashCMA is our launch product under the LLC Confidently, and I like that, confidently, but confidently.
I heard that.
So we do have some other things that we're bringing out within the next year that we're excited about. to help kind of keep up the momentum of keep it simple, keep it transparent, keep it collaborative, visual, and most importantly, empower the agent. That's getting lost, I think, in a lot of the tech. And it's something that, as an agent myself, is really important to me. So as we are looking to put out additional tools that complement dashCMA, we need to keep those five things important.
That's awesome. Actually, I didn't know that beforehand. So now I got a better vision, and I do love the different touch points that you're staying focused on to help guide that direction. I would love to get your opinion also, though. So, I mean, with all the money that is coming to real estate tech, and we're even seeing it for the brokerages, some of the big players that have the largest reach, they've got the oldest offices. Why do you think right now is the time we're seeing so much investment poured into real estate on the tech side?
Because I think a lot of the current real estate tools don't hit on those 5 touch points. And those 5 touch points pretty much embody the current consumer. The current consumer is expecting to get information on demand, not be told, wait, and we'll get it to you as soon as we can. They can get anything on demand at this point. They're expecting an interactive experience. They're expecting to be part of the experience. Your current customer doesn't want to be told, trust me, I'm the expert. They want to know the process. I mean, think about even when you go see a doctor, that is absolutely an expert. And yet you have people going in saying, well, I checked WebMD before coming and it said I have this. And so if they're doing that at the doctor's office, they're absolutely taking that approach when they're buying a home as well. They're doing their homework, and you have to let them in some way. And you have to have a toolkit that lets them be part of that process. So I think basically with the new wave of technology and this new savvy consumer, brokerages have to start pivoting and responding to that so that they're still needed.
Yeah. I'm so glad you used the doctor example. There's a really boring book. I wouldn't say it's a good book, but it's a very boring book called The Death of Expertise. And it could have been summarized in like a 10-page paper. I would have been satisfied. But I trudged through reading it, and it really just talked about that point of the availability of information is everywhere. The people who hold positions of expertise no longer just at a given, position of power, position of expertise. It really has to be proven in some way. And, doing that so visually is so much more powerful than doing it audibly.
Right.
So it sounds like, you're really hitting on that. So, so I don't really recommend people go read that book. But Ryan Holiday put it on his books to read list. And so then, of course, I just went mindlessly. Yeah, but it was not. I kept reading it like, hey, what's the point of this? I never found it. So anyway, I want to get to, we're going to move into the bottom segments of the show. These are my favorite parts of the show. We're going to jump into For the Future. This is a segment where I get to ask each guest who comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. Karen, are you ready to play?
I think so. I'm suddenly nervous. I don't know why, but okay.
It's the build up. It's the lead up into it. All right.
I love games, so.
There we go. Question number 1. What does dashCMA look like 1 year from now?
Oh, okay. What does dashCMA look like 1 year from now? More complete in that there's going to be more features added to it. So right now you can see the difference in pricing between having a pool, not having a pool. We're starting to add a lot more features to that so that you can really slice it down and better understand how features add value. We're also looking at it from the lens of a rental market, from the lender side, from the title side, looking at it from a consumer angle who wants to quickly find out what's my home worth at a glance. So it's going to be much more robust pricing tool on that, and hopefully with some different tie-ins as well from a tech stack perspective, so that it can be part of that living, breathing document and experience that you do every day.
Awesome. Question number 2. This is the crystal ball question. What's the housing market look like 1 year from now?
I think it depends on your area, for one.
Okay. That's a good political answer.
Yeah. So I'd say, but I'm not going to dodge the question. So I'm in Los Angeles. So what's the housing market look like in Los Angeles 1 year from now? I think that we are starting to see definitely a bit of a slowdown. I think we're starting to see some more iBuyer presence coming in a bit too. And I think you're going to start seeing tech becoming a much bigger presence in the market. And I think it's going to look, the sale of homes is going to look like more like data points in a network per se. So I think right now where we look at it as property, it's going to be perceived more as data, which I think it should be. It's an investment. So to me, an investment is a line item on my taxes, and your home should be too. So I do think it's turning into that. And a lot of the, for example, your Compass perspective and a lot of the tools, the Zillow, Redfin, what they're trying to do is kind of supporting that idea of you should be looking at real estate as if it is data and not just necessarily a dwelling unit.
Interesting. I love that take. And I think you're when you said Los Angeles, the iBuyers, that's where Open Door just expanded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because in the market here, agents aren't necessarily as familiar with iBuyers. I'm familiar with it from going to the different events and so forth, and just from being on the tech side, but hasn't been a huge presence here.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting for me to watch kind of how it's being introduced and that knee-jerk response to it, and how others are starting to how you embrace it and how you bring it into the fold of what you do as an agent. So from the ground up, and it's been interesting to me, both from an agent side, as a tech side, and then also as just a homeowner myself. I'm curious into what it's doing to market values.
Yeah, I fill out the lead forms. I'd love to hear the experience going through it. And so that would be, you should do that, and then you open up dashCMA and sit with whoever they send out to your house and just show them if it matches.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to bring in. So that's part of that 1 year from now.
Set it up as like a candid camera. That would be good. Okay, question number 3 here. What's one industry trend you think will continue, but you wish would go away?
One industry trend that I wish would continue. Will continue.
Yeah, you think will continue, but you wish would go away.
I think, okay, so the idea of pricing the home low so that you get multiples.
Okay, walk me through this one here, because this is a very common strategy.
Yes, so pricing is very psychological. And this idea that if I know the property is worth if I know it's worth $700,000.
There we go.
Instead of pricing it full circle, instead of pricing it at $700,000, there's a trend of let me price it at $600,000, and then if we get $700,000, I look awesome because I got $100,000 over list price. Mm-hmm. But you got market value for it, and the risk you're taking, one, is if you don't get it. Yeah. Now, you took a property that should have been $700,000 market value, and it got $600,000, and it changed that. It changed that market, everyone for that whole market. So I do think, and this is ironic because I'm in the comp planning, but I do think the way we appraise homes should change a bit. I think it's really ironic that what I sell my home worth is heavily based on what everyone else's homes sold for in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a blog post about, kind of joking, but very, honest as well, that to get top dollar for my home, I might get more for my home if I put a new roof on my neighbor's home instead of mine. And
well, yeah, because you don't want to be the nicest home on the block.
Well, but think about this. If I'm thinking of selling my home if I put in all the upgrades, if I painted every wall orange, if I did all the upgrades and I said, I'm hoping to get 800,000. And now my neighbor who has the same square footage, same bed count, clearly same neighborhood, and they're thinking of selling their home for 600,000. Yep. And I have an extra $50,000 to spend. Should I spend the $50,000 to get on my own home, or should I maybe try to get them a higher value by investing in their home? Now they're the most recent comp. They're definitely the closest comp. They're the most recent perspective in every buyer's eye, because that's the last one they saw. And then all they remember wasn't there a home next door to you priced at 600,000? And you're now on the market for 800,000, and I have to go explain, well, mine's more updated and I had this and that.
Maybe there's a way you could use this as like buying equity of your neighbors' houses.
It would have been better to just help them get the higher value.
That's so fascinating to think through.
So I do think the appraisal process needs to change a little bit so that it's not so dependent on the closed properties, which is why when we built dashCMA, it was really important to also show not just the closed perspective, but show what's happening, show the active and pending market. This is your current competition. I'm not competing with a home that sold 2 months ago.
Yep. Yeah, you got to look at the pending, and you've got to look at the current on the market. And, that's where things like, days on market starts to matter a lot more.
Yes.
And, if it's gone under contract and it's come out of contract multiple times, hey, you've got an issue here or something along those lines.
So on that, we show days on market in 2 ways, and I think it's really important. Whereas your other tools will look at days on market as one value, we show it from 2 angles. One, the closed days on market. That's your case studies. That's what's happened, but it's not what's happening. I want to know, how long are the similar homes to mine sitting on the market? How long have they been?
Totally.
So we show active shelf life as well, so that you can get a sense of the home that sold 2 months ago. You're not competing with it, but that you should be aware of it, because the price of the home 2 months ago is going to be used to help appraise yours.
Yeah.
You're not competing with it.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, we're gonna jump to the last one here. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of technological advances?
Say it again. What's one thing in real estate that I think
will dramatically change or fade away as a result of technological advances?
I think you're for sale by owners, for example. I think you're either going to see a huge increase or a decrease on that. I think basically because of a lot of the new rules that are being put that just even came down as well, that involved in terms of disclosures and transparency, it's either going to be much harder to sell your home yourself, or it's also, because of a lot of these rules, it's going to make it harder for the agent, and it's going to make more people want to try their own hand at that. So I think we're going to see either a big swing one way or another in the person having your individual homeowner having all of these resources to price their home, to sell their home, to put together a contract and everything that they can do to help show it, will either increase or will become much more of a liability for them to do. Got
it. All right. I love that. Okay, we're going to get to the last 3. These questions are designed so our listeners get to learn more about you and watching. Those who are watching. I don't think anyone's on right now. That's okay. We're still learning this Facebook Live thing. First one.
On a Saturday? That's shocking.
I know, right? What do you think? If you're watching live, good night. It is. Anyway, let's just keep on going here. First one here is, what are you reading?
Oh, gosh. So I'll be honest, I'm not a huge, reader. I am a huge podcast listener, though.
Okay, we'll run with that. Pick a podcast.
I probably listen to every single How I Built This with Guy Raz for NPR. I'm fascinated by memoirs and autobiographies. So in terms of what I've read quite a few. In terms of what I've listened to, I love listening to people's paths and understanding where they came from, what inspired them along the way. And so that's one I love listening to.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book Getting There?
Yes.
Who was it? I didn't find this myself. Someone else was on the show and they gave me, that's why I do this segment. So I get everyone else's, like I get the smartest people's book recommendations. It's kind of great. But someone else.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I love the audiobook. So it's funny because the last book I bought, but I haven't read is The 4-Hour Workweek. And the reason I haven't read it, there's no audiobook for it. And I'm very much, I drive a lot. So I constantly have it on the background. I'm always listening to, I like to have closure too. So for me, podcasts are much better because I can complete it versus when I start listening to an audiobook, and Getting There was one of them where I felt I needed to hear it all in one sitting.
It's too much. I've been taking my time, like a few segments at a time and then calling it good just when I go walk the dog or something like that.
Yeah, but I do like that one. Yeah.
That's a good one. Question number 2, who are you learning from?
I'm learning from everyone. I'm learning from you. For example, you. When I started this, everyone told me you need to talk to him, and I'm just trying to make sure that I'm being as much of a sponge as I can, and I'm trying to learn from everyone. Have 10 conversations a day where I'm listening and learning. I'd say, gosh, I don't.
Business, you got to work your sphere just as much as a real estate agent.
Yeah. So exactly. I'm trying to make sure that I understand and listen to what everyone else is working on. So I'm part of the Drew Myers Geek Estates mastermind group. And
2 weeks in a row, Drew gets a shout out.
Oh, really? I love the group. I think it's been great kind of, collaborating and hearing others' perspectives. I've made great friends within that group. And I've done some even, different practices of running through different feature ideas or pitch practice with people in that group, and kind of also participating in theirs as well. So I'm hesitant to call out specific people because there are so many people I feel that I am learning.
There you go. I get it.
I don't want to let anyone to feel left out. So that's why I'll give a very political answer, and we'll just leave it at Drew.
Last week I did a solo recording, and one of my pro tips was if you want to stay up on what's happening in real estate tech, to get plugged in with Geek Estate. So
great.
Yeah, I'll give that shout out again. Drew doesn't pay me for that, but every once in a while I do make him grab lunch with me when I'm in Seattle, so that works out. All right, last one here. What inspires you?
I'm a very curious person. I'm inspired by creating. I'm inspired by storytelling. To me, I like problems. I like trying to figure out how you can fix it. I'm a very hands-on person. So I start everything in Excel. I'm just pretty much inspired by kind of really problem solving. I like the process. So when you said, let's play a game, I'm like, let's play a game. I kind of love seeing where it takes you and kind of not knowing that. But then, so that's been for me the most inspirational part of this, is that I get to really create something and have fun with it.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Kind of to your point before, if it's not useful, it's not necessary. I always say, I don't want to build anything that's interesting. I hate the word interesting because it's not necessarily actionable. So I'm inspired by innovation and curiosity.
I can appreciate that. Just interesting is fine and dandy, but then I there was a time where I really had shiny object syndrome. Like, just saw a shiny thing and ran to it. And I don't know what happened. I think I grew up because it wasn't that long ago. And now it's like, okay, but what, I'm ultra on the utility of where does it get me? Where does it get someone else? What difference does it make? And if it doesn't cross that gap, if it doesn't bridge that gap, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but we got to rethink this here a little bit. Like,
Right.
Otherwise I'm not so sure why I would give this my time.
I did too.
This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you being willing to go live.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that beforehand. I just kind of sprung that on you and said, hey, how do you feel? Because I'm trying to learn this, all the live broadcasts and figure this out. But anyway, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you going into detail and sharing a lot about what dashCMA is doing, your path of where you're headed, and then even some curveball questions. Sorry I threw those out there. I just had to do it.
Okay.
Before we sign off, I want to give you an opportunity for people who want to get connected to you or learn more about dashCMA. Where do they go and what are the best ways to do that?
Sure. So you can send us a note at support@dashCMA.com, or you can go to dashCMA.com. Right from there, you can see how to register for our weekly webinars. You can ask questions, see our frequently asked questions, ask how to get live for your MLS, or start your free trial right from there. So,
awesome. Yeah, we really appreciate that. If you want all the links here as well, you can just head to the TechNest website, technest.io, and I'll have all those links below in the description. Karen, thanks so much. Eventually, we'll bump into each other. If you ever make your way to Chicago, let me know. But until then, we're going to sign off on Facebook here, and then we'll close up the recording after that. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you later.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening to the TechNest podcast. Hey, don't forget you can get on the email list so you never miss an upcoming episode. That's technest.io. That's technest.io. Get on the email list. Go to the App Store, whether you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you found us. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And if you've got a guest or someone that you'd like to recommend, or if you think that you'd be a great guest on the show, hey, send me an email, Nate@realteampanda.com. That's Nate@realteampanda.com. See you guys later.